Hey everyone, Alicia here from Stretch It app, and on today's episode of Stretch It Fundamentals, we go over how to mitigate back pain when you're training back bends. Typically in back bend training, the low back is involved, but what usually happens is that we forget that there are other body parts that contribute to a beautiful back bend. Those are the hip flexors, the shoulders, the chest, upper and middle back. And usually if you have a very flexible low spine, you overly rely on that part of your body to create the back bend, and it's asking for support from the other body parts that I mentioned. And if we can emphasize the role of the hip flexors, the shoulders, chest, upper and middle back, not only will you increase the overall degree of your back bend, but you could also lessen any discomfort and eventually alleviate any pain that you're experiencing during training. A lot of the feedback we receive about low back pain is in the low lunge stretch specifically. So with one foot forward and the other knee back, people have a hard time feeling the stretch in their hip, which is what this is designed to target. And they feel it in their low back because it's hard to separate the posterior tilt in the pelvis and trying to keep the low spine as neutral as possible, especially when the pelvis is that low. One thing I would suggest is to work higher so you can keep the back fairly neutral, and then emphasize your posterior tilt by pushing your hip forward and targeting the stretch better here for your psoas. If you still want to work in the low lunge, I would recommend that you use blocks to keep them by your hips, and again, keep the chest and torso as high as possible so you don't get your forward lean here, but try to get the back hip forward, squeeze the glute, and then find that hip extension without using the low back. Another stretch people feel pain in their low back is in the seal or Cobra stretch, where hands are in front, legs are behind, and you lift the chest here. Now, in the low lunge I just showed, with that hip extension, it is required that you drive your hips down instead of just squeezing your butt in, because that will feel restricted to the low spine. So it is a collaborative effort between your hip extension and your low back extension. So they are both working, but to have the support from your hips will yield a far better and more stable stretch. If you want to also work on back bends without necessarily targeting your low spine, I like this stretch using the blocks. With two blocks behind you, one for the shoulder blades and one for back of head, gently lower body down so that shoulder blades land on that first block and head lands on the second. You can reach arms wide and overhead to get a great shoulder and chest stretch. But what this emphasizes now is the upper and middle back. Low back is totally out of it. So a lot of people have a hard time distinguishing between the two, how to extend from the middle part of their spine versus their low back. And this is a way you can work on your overall back bend shape without necessarily involving the low part of your spine. If you want this to be more intense, remember to roll side. In order to exit this position, you can stack blocks higher, keep them under your shoulder blades. Now, before you lower down, place hands behind your head and then lower. This is going to create a deeper neck stretch, but ultimately, if you want to improve your back bends, the neck is involved as it extends back. You can take the same arm patterns here, working on lowering the arms as best as you can to touch the floor to get the shoulders and chest involved in this stretch. If you want to improve your flexibility, make sure you check out our classes on our app. The link will be down below in the description box. And if you want to see more classes like these, make sure you like this video and subscribe to our channel.